What's going on, guys? Alpha the Wizard back at it with another video. Today we're continuing the meta history of Yu-Gi-Oh! And right now we are in year of 2005 GOAT format. So in the last few videos we covered the GOAT Control Toolbox deck, and then we covered Reasoning Gate Turbo. The deck we're going to be covering today is going to be called Library FTK. Yes, you heard it right, an FTK. They do exist at this time. However, there are not very many because the card pool is pretty low. However, I'm just going to go ahead and dive in and give you an idea of how this deck works. So to start things off, we have the star of the deck, which is Royal Magical Library. This card is a 3-of. We're basically trying to draw through our whole deck using a lot of spell cards, and basically this gets a counter for each spell card you activate, and you can remove 3 counters to draw a card. So that is essential key to this strategy. And then in addition to Royal Magical Library, other cards that are going to help us get through our deck as quick as possible is Thunder Dragon. Thunder Dragon is another key component to the strategy, utilizing cards like Graceful Charity and like Reload, cards like that. Thunder Dragon synergizes really well because we're going to have an extra card in our hand. So, just the synergy is there. We don't play very many monsters in this deck because we are trying to draw through our whole deck practically. And then we do have a Sangan. Sangan's really good this format. Obviously it's GOAT format, so there's going to be infinite search targets for Sangan. However, if you don't open the greatest hand, Sangan is going to get you to your Royal Magical Library, and you might be able to just OTK next turn. So yeah, Sangan is a requirement. Some people can justify not playing Sangan at all and just playing like maybe, another card that helps get through your deck. But I think, Sangan is pretty necessary. But then last monster, we do have Cyberjar. Now, Cyberjar is really good in this deck because if they attack into it, most decks this format aren't OTKing you. So they attack in a Cyberjar, and then you are just going to end up with 5 free cards. And chances are, if Cyberjar resolves and they don't have much support to prevent an OTK, which in most cases they won't because it is GOAT format, Cyberjar is going to allow you to just OTK next turn. So this card is pretty mandatory. Now that is it for all the monsters that this deck plays. Now, moving on to the spells, this is going to be a pretty lengthy spell lineup, so just bear with me. We do have 3 Archfiend's Oath. Now, basically how this card works is you pay 500 life points to declare a card. Pick up the top card of your deck, and if it is the one you declared, you can add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Now, this card is essential in this strategy because basically how Library FTK works is we're going to be burning our life points all the way until we get to 500, and then we use a cool card called Reversal Quiz, which swaps opponents' life points with us and our opponents. So we're burning ourselves to 500, and then we just beat them with Black Pendant. But this card is essential to helping us burn our life points down to 500. But in addition to Archfiend's Oath, a card that synergizes really well with this is Convulsion of Nature, because you're going to be able to see the bottom card of your deck, because this allows both players to turn their respective decks upside down. So this, in tandem with Archfiend's Oath, you're paying 500 life points, which is good for what you want to accomplish, and then you're also just getting a free card. And it's not a hard once per turn, it's only once per copy. And if it does leave the field via like a giant Trunade, you can activate it again. And then we do play 3 copies of Reload. Now, Reload is good in this deck because sometimes you draw too many copies of one card, or, if you open Thunder Dragon, you are just going to have free cards in your hand, making Reload not a neg card. Because most of the time, if you activate Reload, it's a neg 1. but with Thunder Dragon in the deck, it is not. And then we do have 3 Spell Reproduction. This card is pretty self-explanatory. You can send 2 spells from your hand to the grave to recycle a spell in your grave. Yeah, this is going to be really good for recycling cards like Giant Trunade. Trunade is one of the blowout cards in this deck, and it is next on the list, so I'll just go ahead and place those here. Giant Trunade is really, really important because you're going to be constantly using Royal Magical Library, of course. So in addition to this, you're going to Trunade all these continuous spells back to your hand just to activate them again, which is very, very good with the library. So in tandem with utilizing those for the library, we do play three Toon Table of Contents. This is going to just allow us to just get free advantage, because if we have library and we start off with Toon Table, that's a counter. We use another Toon Table, that's another counter. And then the third Toon Table, that's another counter. We have Toon World in our hand, which I'll just go ahead and put those right here. But then, in addition to that, you're just going to use library to draw a card. And then Toon World also helps us by paying 1,000 life points to help us get our life points down to the 500 range where we need it to be. But then also synergizing with spell reproduction, we do play 2 A Feather of the Phoenix, because sometimes if you have to card destruction your reversal quiz away, it can be very hard to pull off the FTK. Now, Feather of a Phoenix just allows you to recycle this, and Feather of the Phoenix with Archfiend's Oath on the field, you can just add it back to your hand. So yeah, this is actually really, really good. Some people might want to play 3 of these, but you don't necessarily need 3. And then continuing with our spells, we do play 2 Level Limit Area B. Now, sometimes if we can't FTK, we need to slow the game down to the point where our opponent isn't really doing much. And Giant Trunade deals with any problems that we may, encounter. So Level Limit Area B, we can bounce this back to our hand. We can activate it again if need be with library, get a counter, and then just keep doing that kind of thing. And then we do play 2 Upstart Goblin. It doesn't matter how many life points we give our opponent. This card isn't to this format, or else we'd play 3. But yeah, it doesn't matter how many life points our opponent has, because we're going to be swapping with them. But then, in addition to these, we do play the power spells, Graceful Charity and Pot of Greed. For good reason, we're playing an FTK deck. Pot of Greed is just a +1, and then Graceful Charity helps us get rid of some of those cards we might not want. But then we do have 1 card destruction, for good reason. If we draw a brick hand, just card destruction and we just start fresh. And then Premature Burial, just because there might be some instances where we end up with another library in a graveyard, and we could just Premature Burial it back and have 2 libraries in play. And if you end up with 2 libraries on the field, that's usually just game. And then we do have Black Pendant. This is the card that is going to win us the game, because we are going to be equipping the Black Pendant after we utilize the reversal quiz. So these cards are how we win the game. We draw through our whole deck with library and a compilation of spells just to swap life points with our opponent using the reversal quiz, and then have Black Pendant. So basically what we do is we equip Black Pendant to Royal Magical Library, activate reversal quiz, send everything to the graveyard, and we call the top card of our deck, which we should already know, and then we exchange life points. And then on a new chain, Black Pendant triggers to deal 500 to our opponent. But yeah, so that's basically the gist of this FTK. Now, to be completely honest, the primary cards in this FTK, just so you can kind of understand how it works, everything else is just trying to facilitate the reversal quiz and Black Pendant. And then Royal Magical Library is the 1 card that is going to help us win the game. But yeah, that's really all for this video. I really hope you enjoyed this content because this is an FTK, so it's basically playing solitaire, but in GOAT format. And yeah, with all that being said, make sure you drop a like, comment, subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next episode of the Meta History of Yu-Gi-Oh!